Today, we will engage in some magic. We will take a memory, one beautiful evening by a mountain lake, and transfer it onto canvas. And to bring that memory to life, we will use a whole set of secret tools that will make your painting truly vibrant. We will learn not just to depict trees and water, but to capture the very essence of the moment, the feeling of a warm wind, the tiny sunbeams dancing on the water, and the silence that remains in your soul. Our foundation will be a landscape my friend brought back from his travels. And our goal is not to blindly copy a photo, but to create a new reality filled with a sense of wonder. So let's begin our journey. Before picking up a brush, I made a small preliminary sketch to define the composition, the skeleton of our future masterpiece. I'll talk in more detail about how to build this skeleton in a separate video. And now on to the most exciting part, the paints. But before we can start painting, we must create an atmosphere. Turn on your favorite music if you like. Imagine that evening. And now, the first, most crucial step, the imprimatura. The imprimatura is not just a layer of paint. It's the mood that will breathe through all subsequent layers. Like a musical accompaniment, I chose Mars Orange. For the sky, it will be a warm reflection of the sun breaking through the clouds. And for the water, a deep indigo, like the very darkness of the lake. These colors will change, but their emotional imprint will remain. The imprimatura needs to be rubbed well to a smooth state so that no brush strokes are visible. Or you can immediately create some texture like I did on the water. Over this secret light, I begin to embody our dream into reality. Here are the first mountains. Here are the basic colors for the clouds. We can already feel the evening being born. I dried this layer thoroughly, as if giving the painting its first deep breath before a new step. And now for the most poetic part, creating the clouds. Right now, we will create the very soul of the evening. We won't just be painting. We will be baking the light inside them. First, a deep blue, the foundation, the background. Then a sky blue, already with a hint of air. And now for the secret weapon, purple. It's not just purple. It is shadow, volume, mystery. Look how it blends with the blue, giving birth to that very depth we see in a real sky. Look at the clouds. I paint in multiple layers, light over dark, and blend with my fingers for smooth transitions. Later, I will add volume with a palette knife. I highly recommend you mix your paints rather than using them straight from the tube. For the clouds, I use a combination of blues and sky blues, adding hints of purple and white. The best purples come from mixing transparent rose paint with blue. And if you need to add white, with a thin brush and yellow paint, I add the first sunspots breaking through the clouds. If yellow mixes with blue, it can create a greenish effect. I try to avoid this, but it's okay. There are many layers ahead for corrections. With a palette knife, I create the first shining effects and work on the sunspots along the mountain line to emphasize their silhouettes. Besides yellow, I use transparent Indian yellow. If you don't have it, you can use orange shades with a bit of brown. With the palette knife, I add lighter parts to the clouds. They become moist, monumental, like sculptures molded from air and light. And, when I look at these clouds, with light already living in them, I don't just see paint. I see that very evening, that very wind that my friend saw. I want to believe that when he looks at this painting, he will feel not only the memory, but also that warmth, that silence, and the sense of wonder that happens when you stop and just watch the sky ablaze. After this meditation, let's return to technique. With a thin brush of a purple hue, I delineate the beautiful silhouettes of the mountains. If the clouds are the soul, then the mountains are the bones of the landscape, its solid support. But even to them, we can add softness by blending the distant slopes to create that legendary aerial perspective that separates reality from dream. Next is my favorite part, creating life. Here, with a palette knife, I add small trees, houses in the distance. These aren't just little houses. They are hints of other lives, other stories unfolding there on the slopes. Their incompleteness is an invitation for the viewer's imagination. Look how easy it is to create a whole fleet. I load 3 colors onto the palette knife at once, and now little boats appear, receding into the distance. With the palette knife, I create reflections in the water. The canvas is already dry, so the delicate layer doesn't smear. I separate the hulls of the boats from their reflections with a line. And now a small piece of cardboard turns into a magic wand, drawing perfect, live masts. This reminds me that art often hides in the simplest things. Using cardboard is very convenient because it creates lines that are impossible to draw by hand. If something goes wrong, you can correct it with your fingers since the paint is still wet. Simple cardboard is the perfect tool for such fuzzy, vanishing lines. Next, with a wide construction brush, I place small dots of ochre on the distant mountains. These are the city lights on the slope. With the thinner pink brush, I mark the light on the water surface, making a few horizontal strokes of lilac and pink. In the distance, I sketch a large ship. It will be an interesting accent, and I adjust it slightly. To get a smooth water surface, I blend it a little with my hand. See what we can do next. I load thick paint onto the brush and draw vertical lines. This is a combination of orange, yellow, and pink. I take my cue from the clouds under the most luminous parts of the sky and paint such reflections. I hold the palette knife at an angle and barely touch the paint, not wiping it, but slightly forgetting it. This creates a shining, zigzagging effect. I repeat this in places where the sun reflects in the lake. For now, I'm just adding a lot of different paint to the water. Next, with a large construction brush, I make horizontal lines to emphasize the plane of the water. With the same brush, I immediately paint the greenery of the foreground in several shades to create depth. Right now, I'm working quickly to outline the general shapes of the plants. By the way, such a fluffy construction brush is a very handy tool for small details like leaves, little houses, and flowers. Now I dry the painting again. The painting is dry. I want to say that it's very convenient to mix paints with a palette knife until homogeneous, and then use them as if they were from a jar. To make the transitions in the sky more expressive, I outline them from dark pink to orange and light yellow. I apply the paint onto a well-dried layer so it doesn't mix with the previous one, and I blend it with my fingers. Now I'll take a palette knife with a light blue shade and apply this shade to the clouds to make them more massive. In this painting, the sky sets the entire atmosphere, and I want these dense clouds, through which light breaks, to be very expressive. To alternate density and the lightness of the clouds, I sometimes apply and spread the paint with my fingers, preserving the expressiveness of the strokes. I want to push the distant mountains even further back in the painting. I take a brush, wipe almost all the paint off it, and apply a light layer to the mountains, then blend it with a cloth, leaving only a faint haze. It seems as if the clouds are covering these mountains, which emphasizes the aerial perspective well. Let's also add a pale blue color to enhance the lit part of the water. I want to make the water deep and multifaceted, so I submerge some of the reflections into the depth and add a layer of lighter shades on top. Everything I did before will show through the new layer. I add fresh blue and sunny shades. The entire painting is built on a combination of lilac, blue, and orange-yellow tones. This is perfect for sunset or dawn. Using a large brush, I add light glimmers to the reflections, loading several shades onto the brush at once. In some places, I leave them as bright accents, and in others, I blend them. To make the leaves in the foreground expressive, they need to be painted with light, colors on a dark background or dark colors on a light one. This creates the necessary contrast. Any greenery should be painted in multiple layers to look voluminous. I mix several shades of green until homogeneous. To make the painting cohesive, you need to add shades from other parts of it into the dense greenery, something blue, something yellowish, something pink. This is especially worth doing during the final detailing when we are bringing the painting together as a unified whole. I dried the painting again, took a brush with a bright color, and outlined the silhouettes of the boats. In this painting, they are not the main element, but rather decorative details that emphasize the mood. I paint them with a palette knife using juicy, light strokes, adding various shades. If the palette knife is inconvenient, you can use cardboard. For the boats, it's important to convey the mood, something maritime, light and juicy. If it's not the main element, you don't have to depict the precise construction. With a dry brush and minimal paint, I'll add fresh shades to the water near the boats. I feel like adding more light, graphic strokes to the ship, and for that, I'll use a white acrylic marker. Basically, I like the result now, but comparing it to the photo, I understand I've created more of a dawn. While the photo is a sunset, there is an elusive vibe that hasn't been captured yet, so I decide to dry the painting and add another layer. I decide to intensify the sky by adding more sunlight, more orange and yellow, more radiance. I also add more purple shades throughout the entire painting. I lightly go over the reflections. Now, I am bringing the painting together as a unified whole and adding the final nuances. This is the moment when fresh ideas usually come. To connect the opposing yellow and blue shades, I use a pink lilac color. It unifies the painting, creating that specific mood. With a small brush and palette knife, I add light yellow shades to the grass. In the evening light, the effect of backlighting often appears. where the edges of plants glow. I will add the same golden hue to the boats. In the shadows of the boats, I'll add some lilac so they blend better with the painting. I'll also add lilac and purple shades to the grass to make it non-uniform and interesting. In some places, it's worth blending the greenery to create pauses, and in others, to leave accents. Now you can trust your intuition. Step away from the painting. Look at it from the side or through your phone screen so your gaze doesn't get stuck on details but sees the whole. Then return and make adjustments until you get the feeling. This is it. It's worth adding shades from the sky, like pink, to the foreground. And now the final ritual gesture. I place the painting horizontally and flick tiny solar splatters onto it. This is no longer a technical trick. It's a dance, the final chord in our symphony of color. And here it is, almost ready. It seems this painting already has a life of its own and is now ready to go out into the world to inspire. It is no longer just a canvas. It is a closed diary with one unfolded page filled with light. And what are your memories waiting to receive such an artistic embodiment?